Hi, my name is Igor, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle.
Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kayfetz. You know, I'm a big fan of Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and I'm not particularly a warrior or anything like that. In fact, I was always trying to avoid fights in school, and I never liked conflict, and I still don't. But The Art of War is actually, it can be easily applied to business and to marketing. And what I want to do is I want to devote a series of episodes showing you how you can take Sun Tzu's principles. And if you never read The Art of War, I don't encourage you to read it. I actually encourage you to get a summary of it and find someone else who read it who can translate it for you into English, because it's been written thousands of years ago and it really comes down to a bunch of core principles. So I recommend getting on Google and finding a couple of articles, probably from Forbes.com or from some other respected information source that breaks down the principles. And what I want to do is I want to show you how Sun Tzu's principles apply to your business and to marketing specifically. So, for example, the first principle of Sun Tzu's The Art of War is a leader leads by example, not by force. In other words, you really have to practice what you preach, and you can't expect for people to follow you, and you can't expect for people to listen to you and to see you as a leader unless you truly practice what you preach, unless you're a living example of what you're doing. And this can be seen online in, pretty much everywhere. I see people selling, coaching how to sell on Amazon without owning any Amazon store. I see people claiming to be, conversion experts, having no understanding of conversions whatsoever and having done no testing of any kind. I'm seeing people, teach other, start coaching programs, teaching other people how to create products, but they never created a product before. I see it all the time where people want to force others to give them money, but they never practice what they supposedly are supposed to be preaching. And this is really bad. In my opinion, the industry would have been a much better place if more people were leaders in their behavior, leaders in their mindset, by truly practicing what they're preaching and turning whatever they're doing into a lifestyle. The good examples that I'm seeing as far as this principle to lead by example and not by force are the people who make whatever it is that they're offering, whatever it is that the problem they're solving, they make that into a lifestyle. For example, there's a guy out there who teaches how to buy exotic cars with very little money down and by using basically like credit unions and stuff like that. And this guy, he runs an exotic car dealership. So naturally, in my opinion, he has the right to teach something like that. But I, for one, wouldn't go out and teach other people how to own exotic cars because I don't happen to own any, because I don't happen to know how to leverage, credit union relationships to get cars. I don't know how to negotiate with the dealers. In fact, it's one of the least favorite things for me to do. That is to go to my dealer and try to get a better deal for a car. In fact, I don't even trust dealers. I think dealers are kind of like, scammy, shady soloist sellers who shouldn't be trusted at all, and they should be shot at zero range in the face, because car dealers are just disgusting as far as I'm concerned. Again, no offense to any car dealers out there, but my experience with car dealers so far, especially since coming to Canada, has been disgusting. So as far as I'm concerned, car dealers ought to revisit their moral and ethical compasses. So this is the first principle. A leader leads by example, not by force. 2, you have to believe in yourself. Okay, that's the second principle of Sun Tzu's Art of War. And I'm going by the article, by the way, an article on Forbes.com by Eric Jackson, who wrote a great article sharing 30-some principles of the Art of War. I myself am not necessarily familiar with all all the principles. I actually went through a summary study of the book, of the manuscript, a while back. I took the core principles that I needed and I applied them to my life and my business, and I feel I've done a good job. But you can never, you never get a gold star. Like my coach says, you never get a gold medal, you never get a gold star. There's no ending to this. There's no, the journey never ends. You're always improving. So, this episode I'm recording as much for you as I am for myself. Now, the second principle is you have to believe in yourself. And this comes down to the audacity. And here's the amazing thing I learned about the online marketing industry. In many ways, this industry is about self-fulfilling prophecies and your ability to buy into the idea that you can actually do something. In other words, when I started my first coaching program and I started offering coaching for like $2,700, and then I went to $5,000, then I went to $6,000, then I went to $8,000, until eventually I went to $12,000, $15,000, and even $50,000 at one point. It really came down to my audacity to just sit there with a straight face and ask for such money in exchange for coaching. It really came down to that, because my content wasn't necessarily much different from what other people could offer, but my reputation and quite literally my belief in oneself, my belief in me, that I was worth that kind of money, allowed me to command those kinds of fees. And that was amazing. As far as I'm concerned, that was critical. And I didn't really get it at the time. I was just doing it as a marketing test. Like, I wanted to see how far can I go. And in many ways, I was shaking. Like, I would pitch someone on the phone and I would be on Skype, we wouldn't be doing any screen sharing, but I would pitch someone on the phone and I would be literally inside, I would be shaking, expecting to get a no, but I got a yes more times than I thought I would ever get a yes. So my ability to believe in myself always dictated my results in this business, and it dictates the results of the people I see around me are getting in our business. And many times I can tell you this. It's not always that a person who believes in themselves succeeds in online marketing. It's not always that a person who believes in themselves or says they do successfully goes and becomes a full-time internet marketer. But it's always, without exception, a person who doesn't believe in themselves does not become a full-time internet marketer. So I can tell you that I'm not guaranteed that just by believing in yourself you're automatically guaranteed success. But what I'm saying is, if you don't believe in yourself, you're automatically guaranteed failure. And that is 100%. I've seen it time and time again. People with good skills, with good intentions, but zero belief in oneself, or having one little thought of doubt, one reason why they can't be fully successful, and that usually dictates pretty much everything. Belief in oneself and one's self-image is absolutely it's just insanely important, and this is a concept that's been proven many times before. But one of the most famous people advocating this concept is actually Dr. Maxwell Schultz. In his book, The Psycho-Cybernetics. In fact, the whole book is devoted to that. And this guy, he used to be a plastic surgeon, where you'd think that self-image, it's exactly what he's fixing, right? So a person comes in, they don't like their nose, or they don't like how their face looks, or he was telling this story about this guy who didn't like his fingers. He thought his fingers were too fat and clumsy, and instead of going and fixing the physical feature that person didn't like, the doctor first worked on the self-image, and he tried to adjust the self-image, because in many times in his practice, he fixed whatever people were asking for him to fix, but the people were never able to stop seeing themselves a certain way. So if somebody came in and they didn't like their nose and he would fix their nose, they would still hate their nose even after he fixed it exactly the way that they asked for him to do so. So self-image, again, we can think of it as a self-image of our visual selves, but the self-image also exists in our potential, right? We all have a self-image for what we think is possible for us. And according to Sun Tzu, and this is where I agree with him wholeheartedly, I think it's one of the most important principles in self-development and success. and just in general, like if you want to go places in your life, the self-image is so important. You have to believe in yourself. It may sound like a cliche. It may sound like something like you've heard in the fourth grade from your math teacher, but it is truly that. It is deep, it is important, and it ties into your self-image and what you feel is possible for you, because you will always hit only goals as high as you think are possible for you. There's also this same exact concept is actually ever present in horse races. Dan Kennedy, one of my most favorite marketing gurus, always talks about it, where he invests in horses and he races horses, and he says that horses have self-image, where a horse that competes against another horse that is supposedly stronger, faster, and is the favorite of the race. The horses feel that somehow, and oftentimes they lose to that particular horse, even though they got all the physical features and qualities, such as younger age, more stamina, better physical condition, etc. Like sometimes you can see horses losing to the favorite just because they're competing against the favorite. You can probably see that the same thing in the Olympics and all the other sports. You can probably see that in all the group sports as well. Like I'm a big soccer fan, and as I'm recording this, we're right in the middle of the FIFA World Cup, right? So you can see how people treat certain players, expecting for them to do some things because it's their reputation, and allowing them the room to do so is just incredible. Especially when you see teams playing against Brazil, right? So Brazil is historically considered to be this amazing team that's supposedly gonna kick everyone's ass, although they haven't done that in years. Although one may argue, okay, we're not going to get into that, but for the sake of the argument, I must say that the last World Cup that happened in Brazil, they were performing pretty well until they hit against the Germans, and the Germans pretty much just kicked their asses 7-1. One of the this match went into history as the biggest defeat Brazil has ever experienced, and yada yada yada. Nevertheless, anytime you see I don't know how to say that, basically a national team that doesn't have as rich of a pedigree as the Brazilian team has, right? You see how they allow the Brazilians to control the ball and just sit out in the defense waiting for that opening for a counter. They're not dominating the game, even though Brazil, is not they're not incredible. Like they could be playing way better, yet the teams give them that space to dominate the game just because they're Brazil. You can see the exact same thing happening, with Germany. So it happens this year, the Germans went home. They couldn't even qualify for the playoffs. But, what you could, even in those matches when they lost, you could see that they were the ones attacking all the time. They were the ones controlling the ball. They were the ones pressuring the opponent. They were the ones to constantly try and score. The pressure was on them to score. They conceded goals in counters. They conceded goals that were fast. They didn't expect them. But they were still the favorites throughout the entire game. And for the most part, the reason they didn't win is because they didn't score. I honestly believe that besides perhaps Mexico, right, who did play really well this year, and I'm actually rooting for Mexico this year, as the underdog of the tournament. I really want them to win. But besides Mexico this year, all the other teams, they weren't supposed to win The Germans weren't supposed to lose to them. So the last game the Germans played against the Japanese, I believe, Japan won 2-0, and that was a complete accident. That was just a big mistake on the Germans' part. They just couldn't score. Whatever they've done, they played well, but they just could not score. And again, it goes back to the pedigree, the self-image that the entire team, the entire German team came in because they're the world champions, right? They got one of the best teams out there. They came with this self-image, and they are still confused. How did that happen? But they were coming in with the right self-image. Anyway, that's the second principle. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself if you want to succeed in this business. Now, The other principle I really love, I think that's one of the most important principles of the entire Sun Tzu's Art of War, is the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. And this principle is incredibly important. And if you can understand that principle, you will actually make a lot of money with very little stress and with lots of good karma from the marketplace. So the principle basically says, look, you can go to war and you can win the war, but you're a truly great warlord if you're not going to war and you're able to subdue your enemy without even touching your sword. That is the true mastery of the art of war, because Sun Tzu claims that war is expensive. The war is expensive in many ways. Time-wise, it's expensive. It takes up lots of emotional bandwidth. That's why I actually hate conflict of any kind. Conflict of any kind on any level, even if it's just the most mundane thing, such as getting my landlord, because obviously I'm renting here, getting my landlord to fix the door lock that broke, and then the landlord giving me a shit about it. Like, even that as a conflict takes a lot of bandwidth that I'm no longer willing to give up, because it just becomes this inconvenience that gets in my way. So any type of conflict or war is always going to be expensive. Time, money, energy, troops, resources, everything. Think about it this way: many wars have actually been lost because of mismanagement of resources. Think Napoleon, who went to Russia in 1912. Basically the soldiers just froze to death or starved to death. That's what happened in Russia, and they just left Russia because they couldn't stand it anymore. I mean, seriously, the entire war was won because of that, because Russians just wouldn't come out to fight Napoleon, because Napoleon was the superior warlord, and they just set it out. They just were, they set out the winter. They waited, and the French just kind of starved and got tired and got, froze their balls off and had to go back to France. And that was the end of it. Same thing with Germany. Germany didn't necessarily just give up like the French did, but the same issue arose. Russians were very well equipped to survive the winter, and the Germans were not. They didn't expect the winter to be so difficult, and every year that they were spending in Russia, the winters were brutal. They had to burn more gas. They had to figure out ways to supply the food for the troops. They had to figure out a bunch of things. And Russia was so big, so vast, and the war became so difficult that the resources challenge has become devastating. It was one of the reasons why Hitler could not conquer Russia eventually. Not all of the reasons, but like one of the reasons for sure. So the war is expensive. Now, how does this translate into marketing in your business? Well, first off, in business in general, if you're fighting a war against someone, you're basically taking away all this time and all these resources away from creating something that's going to make you more money, from creating a new income stream, from creating a new product, from creating a new partnership, a new joint venture partnership, from optimizing something, from developing something new. Like any moment that you're thinking about your enemy is the moment you're not thinking about advancing your business. In and of itself, that alone, okay, is so highly unproductive that we have to be careful not to get carried away. And I've had this happen so many times to me, where I've had competitors knocking off my websites. I had people stealing my customers, including ex-employees. I've had so many different things come up that I eventually just had to say, okay, is it worth for me to pursue, or will I be better off if I just kind of turn the other cheek and just went ahead and create something that makes me more money? 8 times out of 10, I chose to turn the other cheek, move on, and do better than my competitors. And I think that was the right decision, for the simple fact that most of the people who basically hurt me in some way, shape, or form, try to fight with me, they're no longer around. Many of my competitors that were potent and superior in some way or another are no longer even in the industry. So in that way, I feel that was the right decision. But sometimes I did make the decision of going after my competitors, and eventually I would regret that. Eventually, almost every time I got involved in a fight, in a business fight, I would regret that, because it becomes this energy sucking, money sucking, time sucking shithole, like a black hole that just sucks everything you've got out of you. And in my opinion, it's just not worth it. The older I get, the more I realize how little value it actually holds for me. So another principle where this applies, where you need to subdue your enemy without fighting, is in marketing. And this is probably the biggest application of this principle that you can ever make, and that is to understand that if you're making an offer to your market and all you're getting is resistance, or getting a lot of that resistance, you have to fight lots of objections, you have to convince people, that means it's kind of like going to war without prepping, without properly setting your strategy, because Sun Tzu never encouraged to go, and fight your enemy straight on. That's not how you win a war. It sounds nice, and that's what we see in the movies, how people just face their fears head on. But in war, when you're going one army against the other, never go head to head. That's just not the right way to go about it. So in marketing, don't just go ahead and pitch. Don't just go ahead and get involved in the sale. No, you have to find a way to build up to a sale using your marketing in a way where by the time you're making the offer, the prospect is not arguing with you, and they're willing and ready to give you money. That is the application of this principle in marketing, where pre-marketing, pre-influence, pre-set to the entire thing actually creates a scenario where you don't have to convince, or you don't have to quote unquote go to war. You just have to collect the money, and that is the application of that principle in action. So that concludes part 1 of the Sun Tzu's principles applied to business, real life, and marketing. All right, stay tuned for the next episode. This is Igor Kafitz. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time we chat, have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kafitz, and until next time we talk, have a good one.